G'day everyone, and a big welcome to the Big Swing No Ding podcast, setting those barrels back to New South Wales since 2019, and it is another episode of The Ding as we complete the Sheffield Shield round 1 for Victoria. We've been in isolation for a bit, and just as it happens, it is the Victorian aspect of the round that we would like to talk about. Now, as you've seen by the title, well, I haven't quite decided what it's going to be, but I'd imagine it's something to do with Will Pucovski. Let's be honest, you all know what happened. He and Marcus Harris put on 486 for the first wicket against South Australia, which was a bit... Look, like, it was enjoyable to watch, being like a Will Pucovski fan and such, but it's pretty... I feel bad for the South Australians. Like, they've just been nowhere. And if it wasn't for Travis Head just like single-handedly putting the team on his back in the last few games, I don't know where. Like, there'd be questions if like they're even, first class worthy at this point. Like, it's just been so poor. And funnily enough, it's all coming from their bowling at the moment. Like, and you'd think, Chad Sayers has been in the Test squad. Wes Agar's probably going to be a future international player. Daniel Worrell was just about in the Ashes squad before he got injured last year. And, I can't really say much about Lloyd Pope because he's kind of... and you got, like, young Liam Scott. But, yeah, it's very alarming if you're South Australian. But what we want to talk about in terms of the national aspect of things is Will Pucovski opening the batting. Is this something new? We've hinted at it. I think he might have played one day where he's opened for Victoria, but this is the first time we've like fully seen him being handed the keys, and it looks like this is going to be his new position, at least for Victoria. And in the until the Shield break, they might try and swap things around. I don't know how Chris Rogers really wants to play it, but it looks like that's where he's going to be, and he's going to be running with Marcus Harris at the moment, who like himself played a pretty nice innings. Now, Will Pucovski, he's been for the last few years. He has been, I think, just about undoubtedly Australia's best batting talent, and I would still have him in terms of pure batting, as being a brighter prospect than being Cameron Green, for example. But like, this is just, there hasn't really been like that sort of gap for him yet. He's been in the squad, and I think I still stand by that he would have would he have played? No, he probably wouldn't have played last year because Matthew Wade was still in a decent run of things, but I think he would have been in the squad again last year before he pulled out, and then in the year before he was so close to getting a gig at number 6 before Curtis Patterson came in and made 2 tons against the touring Sri Lankans. It was Sri Lanka, right? Yeah. Which was pretty unfortunate for Pucovski's sake. But it's just sort of like, he's been so close, and I think we all know that this has been coming. We all know that he will play, it's inevitable that he will play Test cricket at some point. And like the same can be said for Cameron Green. And I think for the most of us, like avid Shield watchers, it's sort of been, okay, let's not rush him in yet. Like, we love these guys, we love them to death, they're the future of our team, but we can't rush these guys in yet. We need to see what they're doing. And like, I totally agree. And now that I'm thinking about it, like Matt Wade just had a pretty decent return to the Shield, so it's looking a bit more unlikely that Cameron Green plays, at least for the first test against India. I still think he'll probably be in the squad. And then where things start to get very interesting is the gap that has been in the Australian team for the last, well, honestly, since Chris Rogers retired, who's now coaching Will Pucovski. It hasn't really been a staple as the second opener to David Warner. And like, sure, David Warner's form at times has been iffy, but he is still the lock. He's going to be a lock there until he retires, unless he just like goes out averaging 20 and 30 in every format and he just can't get it going, which I just don't think it'll happen. But yeah, so you got David Warner will be one of them. But the thing we've been chopping and changing for, like, again, since like Chris Rogers has retired, like that's how long it's been. And even then, like, he only came in late. It's been really, really tricky for the second opener. We tried Matt Renshaw, who debuted as a 19-year-old, and he was amazing for the first summer that he played in. He scored 181, and then after that he sort of just fell, and he got dropped from the Shield team last year. Like, it hasn't been all going well for him. We've tried to bring him back a few times, so he got a test. I think it was a test after that the ball tampering scandal happened. He was sent in at the top of the order to replace Warner, and then that quickly fell out. But he's still only 22, so that's still very possible for the future of the opening position. They've also tried Cameron Bancroft, of course, who was a prolific and still is a prolific domestic scorer, and he looks like he can put in like with a 50 every now and then for the test scene, but he doesn't look. You can just see it. He doesn't have the test mind to be a lock for us there, and he's just far too unreliable to be completely honest. And then the current one is what we had Marcus Harris when India last toured, who was coming off an incredible domestic season, and I think it was fair to say he was probably our best batsman in that series, aside from, this is pretty funny to say, aside from probably Pat Cummins was probably our best batsman that series, which says something about how that one was going. Who else opened? Oh, Aaron Finch, yeah. Aaron Finch is totally out of the picture, though. He's not going to be there. Usman Khawaja opened, and I still think that he should have been there. He didn't deserve to get dropped. Like, during the Ashes, like, when we were having opening problems and we'd run out of openers to try, Usman Khawaja, averages 98 while he's opening in a test match. And we just didn't think to open him there. It didn't make much sense to me. But it looks like Khawaja's career is pretty much over now. He's struggling to score runs domestically, which really stinks. He could have been incredible for us, and he did give us some really memorable moments. So shout out to Usman Khawaja, but his time is probably over. And yes, Marcus Harris was the other one who was he showed a lot of promise when India last toured. He looked like he was going to be our next sort of rock next to David Warner. Like, we still haven't actually, no, we did see those two open in the Ashes, but of course, like, that was not memorable at all. Well, it was memorable, but for all the wrong reasons for those two. And they squared him up on going around the wicket, and he trudged it back. Well, they did it to both Bancroft and Harris, to be honest. Bancroft has got a reputation getting caught at a leg gully sort of position. He got caught out again last match, was really unlucky. Got an inside edge and somehow went to leg gully. But yeah, Marcus Harris looks like he's sort of fixed up some of his technique issues in that regard. So I think it'll be interesting to see where he sort of sits in the opening pecking order. Because, like, of course, he actually didn't get selected for the first test in the Ashes, which was a surprise to most, but then everyone just sort of glossed over that Cameron Bancroft had like an awesome county season. But then neither of them delivered. And so then we reverted back to Joe Burns, who scored a ton against Sri Lanka, and he scored a 90 against Pakistan, and then every other innings has been rubbish. So I don't really know what to... It's coming into this summer, I think the two positions that were available were Matt Wade's position at number 6 and the second opening position with David Warner. And I think Matthew Wade is probably just safe. Like, just safe. He probably needs another ton in the Shield to fully cement it. And even then, he'll still be in the squad. But Joe Burns has had a real shocking start to this Shield season. He just he made a return of a duck and, I want to say like 16 this match. Let's see. Yep, of course. Like, by the way, great game against New South Wales. That was a ripping match of first-class cricket. Okay, so he made 29 in a five-ball duck where they lost by 1 wicket. And then the match before, he only got to bat once and made 7. So Joe Burns has definitely not had an admirable start to the summer. And so there's sort of been a few options glossing around. At the completion of the first match, we were sort of thinking, wait, can Bryce Street just come out of nowhere and, get that sort of spot going? That's not going to happen, but it would be pretty cool to see. Just him. Like, if you want to rock, Bryce Street is probably like the best in the country at doing it. Just about. That's an exaggeration, but that's how his game style is. And then the other few were Jake Weatherald. He has just pulled out with mental problems with his. I haven't actually looked too far into it, but he's just pulled out to settle on his mental state. Shout out to Jake Weatherald. Hope you get well soon, brother. And then which sort of leaves a bit of a 3-horse race now. Well, it was a 2-horse race. Well, actually, no. It was just Joe Burns, because everyone has just sort of discounted Marcus Harris at this point. These just sort of fall out. He had an okay domestic season last season. I mean, it was good. It was good, but it wasn't outstanding. I need to be picked again. Sort of good. And then everyone's just sort of given up on our openers from that series in the Ashes. So everyone just sort of discounted him. But I really like the tweaks that Marcus Harris has made to his game. So he came in, made a 239, right? 239, I believe. I'll double check it. I know Bukowski made 255. Yeah, Marcus Harris made 239 off 399 balls. Marathon innings, those two. Watched every minute of it. It was absolutely marvelous to watch. But so he's sort of coming back in. He was like always, thereabouts, but but I think he was a really good innings away from coming back into contention, and I think more so showing that he has adapted his technique, and he can he's fixed that around the wicket sort of attack plan to him, and it didn't, like, they peppered him with it, South Australia. Wes Agar really tried to go around to him. He got a lot of bounce going. Liam Scott, but he bowled really well without reward for a couple of spells, which was pretty unfortunate for him. Chad Sayers' radar was just sort of off. It happens with him. It happens. But he's still a very quality bowler. So he saw all those guys out, and he looked really sound. He didn't really put a foot wrong until Wes Agar bounced him for about the millionth time, and he played a shot and he edged it to the keeper. But it's not really much to think about there. But I think Harris is now finally back in, so that gives us 2. And then the third option that we all know now is Will Bukowski, and absolutely no one would have predicted this, that he would be a potential opener for us. And the thing is, because our opening options have been so dry, like Sam Whiteman is just suddenly come into contention with a couple of tons. Like, that's how bad it's going at the moment. Daniel Hughes has sort of been down the order. He would have been up there, but if Daniel Hughes had made a ton, or he makes a couple more tons, then maybe he could come back in, but his time's probably past now. But yeah, Will Bukowski, he was always sort of thereabouts with the middle order level, and his talent is undeniable. His talent is undeniably good enough for test level right now. It's undeniably test ready. But the thing is, was he himself ready? Was he ready to take over the position of, for a while it was Travis Head, and then it became Matthew Wade. And I still think he can't really drop either of them at this point, even though, I personally would take out Wade for a better option, but I don't think they will. I think what we've seen with Trevor Hons in the last few years is that he's been more willing to stick with players and give them a real shot to just see where they're going, and get the team chemistry up as well. Which is, I think the chemistry is another thing why, if say they don't want to rush in Bukowski, or he doesn't do as well for the rest of the Shield, and then Marcus Harris is just sort of mediocre, then I think they will just press with Joe Burns. Because I think Warner and him have they've got pretty good chemistry from what we've seen. They get on well off the field and they enjoy batting together, and I think it's just better to persist. And and not fill holes that you don't have a perfect solution to at the moment. So I think it very much is between those three. It's between Burns, Harris, and Pekowski. If I was like, the thing is, Will Pekowski has only opened in one. I think he's only opened in one first class match. I'm pretty sure, right? Which is a bit, it would be alarming. Like, you don't want to rush that in usually. But he seems like he's in a really good headspace now. He, from like all the articles I've read around him, and just his manner, he looked just so confident within himself. Honestly, you look at the score sheet and they're none for 486, and you think, gee, South Australia must have put down so many chances, and it's like they really didn't. Marcus Harris offered a few, like a couple, but I cannot recall like a single time where Will Pekowski just put a foot wrong. He looked so comfortable with what was coming his way. He looked like he was just ready to bat and bat and bat, and that's exactly what he did. He backed what he knew. He backed what he could do. He backed his ability, and it looks like, but like it wasn't just while he was batting either. While in the field, like I just sort of got the impression that he wasn't this shadow of himself anymore. He looks like he was really embracing what he was doing, and I never thought I'd say this about Will Pekowski, but he looks like a guy that could be a future captain. I think he will be future captain for Victoria. Who knows? Future captain for Australia. That's pretty crazy to think about. If they don't go with Travis Head, which I think is still probably the most likely. But yeah, the real question from here is now though, can Will Pekowski just keep this up? Because all he needs from here is just a string of as long as he doesn't, go and score a pair or something like that, or a pair and a 12, a duck and a 12, if he can just scatter some 50s and then a big ton, or just a ton, then I think that could be enough. And I think that wherever Pekowski goes, Marcus Harris is likely to go, and if they're on level terms, you'd think they would be more likely to select Pekowski, just because he's what? How old's Marcus Harris? I think he's a lot older than people realise. I know Pekowski is 23. No, he's 22. Okay, Marcus Harris is 28, so he's 6 years younger. Pekowski is obviously like the longer term fix, but it remains to be seen if they're actually if he's settled at the opening position, because although the South Australian the quality on paper isn't that bad, it's a really strong attack actually, besides probably Lloyd Pope and that fourth quick or rotation quick. They didn't bowl well. They really didn't bowl well for the most part. So I guess we'll have to see a larger sample size of that, as with anything. I guess it's sort of easy for Australian domestic cricket, because we really hardly ever see these double tons or I can't recall the last triple century in Shield cricket. I couldn't tell you if there's even been one this decade. I know Tom Cooper got close last year, 281, but that was a total road, really. And Cameron Green was 198 last round. And this is Pekowski's it's his third time passing 180, right? And he's only 22. He's only played, I want to say, 20 first class games. That is just insane. So all things point towards that he'll get another one of these before season's end. And if he gets another double 100, then he is instantly in the team, because no one else has done that. No one else will do that. It just won't happen, and that's just not how it seems to work with Australian domestic cricket. The talent is just the depth is not really there. So unless Joe Burns just comes out and makes 5 sets of 70s or something like that, then I would sort of see the lenience towards him. But I think I was in a group chat, and we were sort of saying, if Victoria just keep batting here, which like they ended up actually making a good decision to declare when they did. It still ended up in a draw, but it was lucky that they didn't keep on batting because it would have looked really bad for Peter Hanscom. If they had have batted on and Bukowski had have made a triple, does that give him like instant pass into the test team? And I was sort of thinking about it like, yeah, it probably does. Like as long as he just doesn't go on a stinker, which is very unlikely to happen because it's Will Bukowski and he's just got insane talent. But then again, like being an opener, it's very possible you just get these seeds every now and then. And Australia's got some very good domestic fast bowlers in its arsenal, so anything could really happen there. But if he does get a 100, like that's incomparable. Like no one really comes close to that. And then again, if he just makes a couple more 50s to go along with that, then I think you can't really leave him out. So at this point though, if the test series was next week, right? If it was next week, I would pick Marcus Harris, right? Or would I pick Joe Burns? I don't think I would pick Bukowski yet. Like one innings opening is just, it's too small a sample size, and I'm the biggest Will Bukowski fan, right? I would not rush him into the team yet, even though I think his mental space is absolutely ready. Like if he just keeps batting to the Shield break, and until the squad is named as an opener, and he makes I'll say 3 more 50s. Yep, put him in. I think just his manner and the way he goes about his business, his willingness to not only bat for himself but attack and like run in partnerships with Marcus Harris, like those two combine really, really well. I think he's absolutely ready for Test cricket, and he's always said like that is where he wants to be with his career. And like it's sort of like he just signed a BVL contract with the Stars, and it's like, wow, okay, I'm probably a Melbourne Stars fan for good now, but it doesn't look like he's gonna play. It looks like he's not gonna play because it's a fair bet that he'll be in the Test squad at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they play it. It's a very interesting thing to think about. I could talk about Cameron Green. He just came back in and for bowling for the first time, and he took 2 wickets from his 12 overs. I think total was about 2 for 36 odd, something like that. So he's keeping his bowling average of 21, career bowling average of 21 in first class cricket up to standard. So it's all looking pretty good for him, and he didn't really have incredible returns with the bat, but in the second innings, like they were in full T20 across one day mode, which by the way, Sean Marsh batted really, really well. I don't really want to see Sean Marsh in. Like whoever's scoring runs, like good on him. If that's good for Australia, then that's good. But I'm so sick of Sean Marsh at this point. Like I don't hate him. I love watching Sean Marsh bat when he's on his roll, but it's just sort of like I want to see these young guys now because we're so close to them. We're so close to seeing a Cameron Green blemish, or we're so close to seeing, heck, even Daniel Solway at this point, Yeah, Bukowski, as I've said, I suppose, like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like, there isn't heaps. What the hell, bring in Travis Head to the one-day team, honestly, at this point. I think we can all agree that Travis Head is one of the nicest players to watch bat for Australia, or like just to see doing well. I don't know why. He always brings like that sort of spark to the game, and I think especially like in these first 2 rounds, he single-handedly, like he really did it. He put the team in his backpack and he carried them to these 2 draws. I know Henry Hunt got a 92 in the second innings, but it was pretty much Travis Head. Actually, no, I lie. Shout out to Frankie Worrell. He made 18 off like 50 in the last stages of the match. So he soaked up some balls for them to get a 2-wicket draw. So shout out to Frankie Worrell for that. Yeah, it's good to see that these guys are coming through, and I think it's a good headache to have. It's a good headache to have, but it's again, like, you don't want to be too eager with these guys. I can understand being too, like, at this point, I would be cautious with Cameron Green. I think, although he has been, like, incredible, and if he just keeps his bowling up and he keeps getting back to full fitness, he is, like, all he has to do at this point is just average like 30 or even 35 with the ball, and he will be the best all-rounder in the country by a mile. And then it's like you sort of have to pick him for the ODI team at least. But at this point, I don't think he's not above and away. Like, Matthew Wade isn't putting up a stinker, you know, that for me is what it'll have to take. If Matt Wade doesn't score a 50 in his first 2 tests, then yeah, Cameron Green will play. But I don't know how Trevor Hons and George Bailey's on the board now. We'll play that with Justin Langer. But yeah, we'll see what transpires. I think that'll just about do it for the round 3 Sheffield Shield wrap up. I guess it's not really a round 3. I sort of just focus on the opening position. But anyway, let me know what you guys think of who Australia should open this summer for. I was going to say for the ODI team as well, but that's pretty obvious. For the Test team, and and how close you think Pucovski, Harris, and Green are to the team, and even some dark horses. Throw some of those things in there, just because it's always nice to see the left field options, because I think there's always a couple that are discounted from the team. Like Moises Henriquez was just, like, no one thought that he was going to get another game for Australia until a couple of weeks ago when he was named in the ODI team, and it doesn't look like he will play at the moment. His form, I mean, no, I'm probably being a bit premature there. He is only the first couple games of the season. He just wasn't that good last game. He's been good with the bat, but he hasn't really bowled much, and when he has bowled, he hasn't been great. So yeah, I don't know how they do that. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching or listening. You can go find the podcast wherever you're listening and watching too. So that's a bit of a pointless plug. But go follow the podcast on Instagram. We've relaunched the podcast for my old page, which was Cricket Comments, and putting it into. You can find it at Big Swing No Ding Podcast. It's all one word linked together. And go leave a comment there. Send us a DM for topics you'd like to see. We'll probably have an AFL, a Showtime footy episode coming out sometime this week, because it is trade period time, and everyone loves trade period time. It is very interesting team. I'll almost definitely talk about the compensation picks there, because that has been absolutely crazy what the AFL has been doing there. It has seemed, I'm not going to lie, a bit broken, but we'll approach that when it comes. Thank you all very much for watching and listening, and remember to play it through.